Wish I may, wish I might. I think it's going to take a lot more than that. That's this week on Motoring 2003.
TSN's Motoring 2003 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
You know, no matter where we go, people are always asking us about our favorite cars. And obviously with so many vehicles, so many segments, and so many good cars out there, it's getting tougher to find an answer to that question. But you know, if I had to pick one vehicle to keep for the rest of my life, it would have to be the BMW M5. And I think both Graham and Jim would agree. And we'll talk more about the reasons why and take a closer look at the M5 later on. But you know, first, when the weather was just a little warmer, a sort of celebration was held in Niagara Falls. And the star of the show was a car, well, you could call it an SUV, and you could even call it a station wagon. Nonetheless, despite the fact that it continues to defy description, the PT Cruiser has been a huge success.
What you're seeing today is an expression of the true passion and love for PT Cruiser. When you look at this event, Sean and Lori O'Neill, two people in the Toronto area who had a bit of a dream, and what if we just tried to organize a PT party in Niagara Falls? It was last year. They expected 25, 30 people. Bam, 250 cars show up. And here we are a year later, and it's over 500. People have transformed their vehicles into their personalities. I mean, they've taken what's important to them and they've made their PT Cruiser closer to that personality, and it's just remarkable to see. 229.
I think it's great because the PT is kind of a canvas that allows people to do all these different personalization and things to their cars, and there's an entire range of ideas that are phenomenal.
There's a big mix. There's a mix of things that we've thought of and haven't been able to do, you know, due to demand, or a lot of things that we haven't thought of. And we're making mental note of a lot of these things, and we bring them back and see if we can get them to pass through our system and actually show up on a future PT.
A lot has to do with the styling. I've always loved the 1930s Fords and Chevys. It has a very retro look. First glance, I fell in love with it. I actually followed this car from the drawing board to the magazines to the car show, right to the car dealership. 4 months after owning the car, we bagged it up in the garage and we stripped it completely. From that point, we added a 7-inch LCD screen, a 6-disc mini disc changer, TV tuner, voice commander, master controls, and video switcher all under the driver's seat.
Make a request.
Video.
Thank you.
The GT Cruiser Turbo PT is certainly an answer to some of the early response that we got back from our customers on power. So we've created a package that will be available this year.
It just screams, look at me, I want to take over. I'm a little gangster car, and there's nothing like it on the road. That is 1.5 inches off the ground. You do not hit any malls with speed bumps. You look before you go up a hill, and God forbid you go into a street or something with potholes.
As far as the convertible, that was one of those styling studies that we put out to an auto show. It was a concept car, just kind of testing the market, and we had such phenomenal response to that. We decided that it's something we needed to do for these people who are in love with the car. It's just an extension of its character. So we hope to have that out as soon as possible, and that's going to be our 04 calendar year.
Look at this one.
I'm not the only one who loves the car. I actually belong to a car club in Cleveland, Ohio called the North Coast PT Cruisers. And it seems to date we have the largest head count in the nation. It's become a sort of nostalgic thing, even without having the years to be nostalgic. People really love the car.
They say that God is in the details. Or is it the devil is in the details? More later on Kenzie's Corner.
A new car and a new car company to Canada. This week on Test Drive, it's the all-new Mitsubishi Lancer. After an aborted run at the Canadian market a few years ago, Mitsubishi is back, and they mean business. Leading the charge is the Lancer, a car expected to be 40% of all Mitsu sales. Now, while Mitsubishi's tenure in Canada does not hinge on the Lancer, if it flops, well, I think you get the picture. Powering the Lancer is a 2-litre single overhead cam 4 that pushes 120 horsepower and 130 pounds-feet of torque through the front wheels. While the numbers don't look much on paper, in practice they are good enough to give this 2,700-pound car a peppy launch off the line and enough power to pass a slower-moving vehicle safely. Only at the top end does the power trail off, and just as the engine begins to get a touch noisy. This particular car is separated from the rest of the Lancer range by quite a number of things. You get a few items inside, including white face gauges. You also get a body kit that includes side sill and front and rear bumper extensions. You also get a rear spoiler, a very loud paint job, but the icing on the cake are these OZ Rally rims that are shod with Yokohama tyres. The whole package really does come together very nicely and speaks to the rally-inspired Evolution, a car that hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see in Canada one day. Married to the engine is a standard manual transmission or an optional automatic. The stick works well, bringing a light and progressive clutch and a clean gate. Needless to say, it is the unit of choice. Simply, the automatic takes too much off the overall performance. So unless absolutely mandatory, stick with the do-it-yourselfer. It'll serve you much better in the long run. Inside, the Lancer is very nicely finished. You get a very good set of comfortable seats that give you decent lateral support, and all the controls, well, they're logically laid out. And by that I mean the radio sits above the climate controls. You also get steering wheel mounted cruise control, but there is a drawback when you get to the OZ Rally. Everything is predominantly black other than the white-faced instrumentation. It really does make for a rather drab look. Ironically, if you go with the Lancer LS, well, it gets a very cheerful colour combination. The Lancer rides on McPherson struts up front and a multi-link design in back with anti-roll bars at both ends. The spring and damping characteristics bring a decent balance between ride comfort and handling. Through the pylons, the Lancer tracked a true line with understeer only entering the frame when the 195/60R15 Yokohamas reached the limits of their considerable traction. Considering the Lancer's station in life, the ride and handling are exemplary. Normally when you talk about compact cars, you think of very tight back seats. Well, nothing could be further from the truth in the Lancer. You get plenty of foot space, plenty of knee room, and enough headroom. However, you want to think of this as a 2-passenger back seat, primarily because the center is domed, and this armrest, well, it forms the backrest. However, as I said, for 2 people, you get cup holders and plenty of space. And around at the back, you know, the good news continues because the trunk, well, it gets a low lift over, a good opening, 70/30 split folding rear seats, and 11.3 cubic feet of cargo space. All in all, the back half of the Lancer is very generous. Stopping power comes from a decent front disc rear drum design with anti-locks being an option. When equipped with this important safety device, the stops are short, straight and predictable. Elsewhere, the Lancer gets dual front airbags, 3-point belts for all occupants, those up front employing pre-tension and force limiters, as well as a strong body structure designed to absorb and redirect any impact forces. This new Lancer is a balanced car. You get good handling, enough power and plenty of room, and provided you select the right model, a good buy. The reason I say select the right model, when it comes to anti-lock brakes, on the Lancer LS, well, they're a $730 option. On this OZ Rally, they're $730, plus you've got to buy the sunroof, which will set you back another $1,168 plus taxes. Now that smacks to me of daylight robbery and is enough to cross the OZ off my shopping list, but I would, however, consider the Lancer LS.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns winter tires. At best, most cars come with all-season or high-performance all-season tires. The next level up in terms of winter traction is the proper winter tire. And if you're thinking of purchasing winter tires, the most frequently asked question is, do I need 2 or 4? And the answer to that question is, in most cases, you should have 4 winter tires. For example, a front-wheel drive car with winter tires on the front wheels only will have fabulous straight-line traction. It'll go through the snow in a straight line without any problem. But braking and turning, it'll be a handful. If you don't have good traction on the rear in that front-wheel drive car, even though those rear wheels aren't driven, you're apt to have premature lockup of the rear wheels and a situation where the rear of the car will want to spin out when you're turning and braking or turning. So 4 winter tires is the answer for a front-wheel drive car. If your vehicle is 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, you want to take advantage of the fabulous traction these vehicles have. So 4 winter tires is a given if you're upgrading to winter tires. Now on a 2-wheel drive vehicle like this 2-wheel drive pickup truck, winter tires on the rear axle is okay, providing the front tires are a quality all-season tire with lots of tread depth and the vehicle is driven prudently according to the weather conditions. But by far you're still better with 4 winter tires even on a vehicle like that, because there's no such thing as having too much grip in the winter. That's your Midas tip of the week.
These cars haven't really changed since 1950s, and I love these cars, and they've evolved over the years to be really fast modified coupes, and I've changed with them, and I really love them. They're fast, they're light, and affordable.
Question, your favorite car of all time?
All time or current?
All time.
All time, BMW M5. Now ask me about the current favorite.
Your favorite now?
BMW M5. Pick a generation. I mean, the thing about the M5 is that you can drag race a Corvette from a stoplight, you can chase a Porsche down a winding road, or you can take 3 friends to the opera, and the car is equally at home in all 3 circumstances. I don't know of any other car that's such a triple threat in all conditions. Beautifully built, looks terrific. Used to be relatively inexpensive given what you've got. It's $107,000 now, but it's pretty hard to beat.
I also like the M5 styling, primarily because it's understated. I mean, until it goes by you at about 180 kilometers an hour, you don't know what's coming up behind you. I mean, just a slightly exaggerated chin under the front bumper, and when you get around to the back, the 4 pipes instead of just the regular. Outside of that, it's a real sleeper. When they bring out the new car, I hope they don't stray too far away from the current look, because I think they bastardized the look of the 7 Series, and I just hope they don't go quite that far with the new 5 Series.
You know, back in the early 90s, the M5 was worth about $80,000. Today, you're looking at about $105,000. Still a lot of money, but let's compare it to a couple of other vehicles, like the Hummer. It used to be worth in the mid-70s. Now you're looking at about $150,000. And how about the Acura NSX? Here's a vehicle that used to be worth in the mid-70s. Now you're looking at $142,000. So you could say the M5 is still a pretty good bargain for some people. All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
I guess everything's relative, Brad, but $102,000 in my book is still a lot of money for a vehicle. Now, when you pay that kind of money for a vehicle, you want the best engine protection for it, and absolutely the best engine protection you get is with synthetic motor oils. Now, one of the most frequently asked questions that we get via our email is whether or not our viewers should use synthetic motor oil in his or her car. We get a lot of that mail. Now, there's a lot of properties in which motor oil is rated or tested for, and let's just talk about one of those properties today, and that's pour point. Now, in a nutshell, pour point refers to the ability of the motor oil to pour or be liquid and fluid enough to lubricate the engine at low temperatures. So the lower the pour point, the better. Now, when it comes to pour point, synthetic motor oils are still quite liquid at minus 40 Celsius. They still will pour quite readily. All motor oils thicken to some extent as the temperature decreases. That is a normal and acceptable condition, and it's unavoidable. But how much it thickens is often the difference between the engine getting started or not getting started in sub-zero temperatures, and also whether or not the engine sustains any damage on startup in that minus 20 or 30 morning when you try and start it. Now, if you live in an area of this country where the ambient is consistently below minus 15 Celsius, you should think about using a synthetic motor oil because it will afford you much greater engine protection. And in many cases, it may be the difference between you getting that thing started on a minus 20 morning and not getting it started at all should your block heater fail or wasn't plugged in. So this is one key area where synthetics are clearly ahead of the rest of conventional motor oils. Now, you're going to pay about twice as much per liter for a synthetic motor oil, but when you pay $102,000 for a car, I think $6 or $6.50 a liter is not too much to pay for the engine oil to give you the kind of protection you need. Now, the other question that people often ask is it okay to use it in my particular vehicle? Well, mileage doesn't always have to be the factor. When I bought this used pickup truck, it was well in excess of 300,000 K, and I switched it to synthetic motor oil without any problem at all. However, if your engine is burning oil, leaking oil, or it's got signs of major engine problems, in other words, low engine oil pressure or knocking, don't switch to a synthetic motor oil before you repair the wear and tear that you've got on that engine or replace the engine. It's not for an engine that's already got problems. But if your engine's making good oil pressure, not burning oil, not losing oil, sounds good, no reason why you can't switch it over and reap the benefits of using a synthetic motor oil. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2003.
For more information on past and future episodes of Motoring, log on to the Motoring website at motoringtv.com, where you can email your suggestions, questions, and comments, which are always welcome. That's motoringtv.com.
The area of automobile safety has a big one. It covers a lot of ground, but the low-hanging fruit, as they say, has already been gathered. By that I mean the easy gains have been made. All cars these days have front crumple zones, they've got airbags and seat belts, most of them have ABS. But I want to show you some of the details that car makers go to make your ride even safer. I happen to have a Subaru Forester here, so I'll use that as an example. This car, there is an orange strip on the bottom of the windshield. That's an electric heater that keeps the wiper blade from freezing to the windshield. Has that ever happened to you? Do you live in Canada? This car has a nice little ridge running along the side of the windshield, so washer fluid doesn't spill over the side of the car and get in the way of your visibility on the side. The water runs up along the top and over the top of the car. Subaru has gone even further in that area. There's a little indentation right along the mirror housing here, and another little tab underneath, and they're designed to create air turbulence in this area, which helps wipe the water off the mirror and the side window so you can see what's coming from behind you. And by the way, don't forget to adjust those mirrors properly, as we've shown you before. Just a little detail, but a really nice one. Now, in the back seat, of course, every car has to have rear seat headrests, but think about it. How often do you need a rear seat headrest? First of all, you got to be in a crash where a rear seat headrest can do you any good, and secondly, there's got to be somebody sitting back here. That combination doesn't happen very often. And yet, 100% of the time, you've got a driver here who has to see what's going on behind him. Well, at least Subaru's got these all adjustable, even the middle one, so you can get them out of the way. In a similar vein, you've got a 3-point seat belt for the middle seat rider, which is a good idea. Not very often anybody back here, and this thing gets in your way. So Subaru's designed it so that you can take your ignition key, you can poke it into a little hole here, and you can release this buckle, and it slides up into the roof where it's out of the way. Very nice idea. I'm a big fan of visibility. Coming to the back of the car, we can see the tailgate here. Again, we've got an electric heater for the wiper so it doesn't stick to the glass. Good idea. And you'll notice the complete absence of a spare tire. Like a lot of SUVs have the tire on the back of the car where it gets filthy, it gets stolen, hard to deal with. Subaru has put it inside where it belongs, and it's not a Mickey Mouse tire, it's a real spare tire. Oh yeah, they also got this little thing here. You can put your burgers on the one side and your Coke on the other side. The hot side hot and the cold side cold. They've got tie-down hooks for your luggage. You can bungee cord your stuff back here so it doesn't fly forward in the event of a crash. But my favorite little detail in this car, look at this. There's a place to store an umbrella. I tell you, these days, car engineers are thinking of everything. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, all good things must come to an end, which means I have to take the M5 back to BMW until I can find another reason to take it for a drive. Anyway, before we go, I want you to check out our webpage at motoringtv.com or click in tsn.ca. And you're going to find our nominees for the upcoming Car of the Year special. And we want you to make your selections. And whoever gets closest to agreeing with our selections will get a day at the Shannonville Motorsport Racetrack. It's where they hold the annual Automobile Journalists Association of Canada's Test Fest. And for one day, you will be able to get the key to every new car. How about that? Anyway, that's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Company is starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, if we want to make money on vehicles, we got to make vehicles that appeal to people, not only on price, but on things they actually want in a car versus things that they can get away with.
TSN's Motoring 2003 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.